Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Alex Morse. I'm a registered music therapist and a creative arts consultant for aged care. And today I'm having a conversation with the amazing Hayley Anitpas. Hayley is the Music and Wellbeing Coordinator at Brightwater in Western Australia. I should say that Hayley and I have had the pleasure of doing a little bit of work together, and I'm a huge fan of all the amazing things she's doing for Brightwater, and I really look forward to hearing it from her. So thank you, Hayley, for joining me today. It's lovely to have your company.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Yeah, great to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so let's just jump straight in. I'd really like to know, what is your motivation behind working in aged care and working with elders?
Yeah. Look, I kind of fell into aged care, to be honest. I was working in a more corporate space, and then I decided that I really wanted to do something different and to help people. So started working as a disability support worker, and I just loved it. But what I loved most were the moments where I got to attend concerts with people or do karaoke with residents. And, you know, as a musician, that probably makes sense. But I started seeing how special music was to connect people. And I just decided I have to do more with this. And then I ended up in aged care and just adore when I see families connecting or carers connecting with residents and singing together, or even just employees, you know, participating in a group and singing together and having a laugh and having some fun. That just totally motivates me. Yeah.
Awesome. Likewise. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about embedding music in care. So embedding music in care is a little bit of a different spin to how some people would experience music in care. So tell me about what embedding music in care is about.
Yeah, quite a big question, but I would love to try and unravel some of those layers. For me, I think embedding music in care it's really grounded in this understanding that music is actually part of who we are. You know, it's been there for some of our most important life events, and it can bring up lots of emotions and memories. So when we talk about embedding music in care, really we're talking about music being a part of a person and a way of bringing out their identity and their memories. And particularly in aged care, I work with a lot of people who do live with dementia. So connecting with them and getting to hear their stories and their life can be tough. But when we use music as the way that we communicate with people and connect with people, it can actually be quite effective. So that could be carers singing someone's favourite song with them while they're in the bathroom. It could be carers, you know, having a dance in the kitchen while they're prepping dinner. It could be RNs kind of almost prescribing different music or recommending music as part of someone's pain management plan or part of their sleep plan or part of their mental health, and really starting to think about music as something that we can do before we go straight to PRN medication. So it's at every layer. The carers are thinking about how they can use music. The nurses and the therapy professionals are thinking about how they can use music. So some of our physios have asked me to create some music programs that can accompany their exercise classes. So it's really, music becomes part of everything that we do, but we're doing it in a really thought out way. So we have policies and procedures that can identify when perhaps someone needs a bit more support. Yeah, so for me, embedding music in care, it covers all of those different layers across the organisation.
Okay, so as a music therapist, this is music to my ears because it should be just part of all practice, particularly in residential aged care, because music's such an effective tool in being able to transform people's lives and should be so much bigger than just a moment of enjoying music by, for example, a volunteer musician. So tell me, how did this start?
Oh, that is taking me back. So actually, it started with my husband. He was at a fundraising event that Brightwater were hosting, and he came home from this event buzzing and went, Brightwater are fundraising because they want to look at how they can use more music as part of their care. That's what this whole event was about. And through very typical Perth channels, kind of, it's a small world, people know people. He managed to put me in touch with a couple of people, and I actually talked to Brightwater for a year before I started working there to really understand what they were trying to achieve and to give them some information and advice around what they could do. So where music had been effective, and that, look, you know, at times that was summarizing some research for them. At other times that was sending them YouTube clips to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was really a range. And 12 months on, after all of those different conversations, they advertised the Music and Wellbeing Coordinator job, and I was the lucky candidate.
And so you should, amazing.
Thank you.
Brightwater's incredibly lucky to have you. Fantastic.
Thanks, Alex.
Pleasure. Tell me, so if I was going to go into one of Brightwater's facilities and have a look at this program, you touched on a few things at the beginning, but what are some of the things you might see if we were to experience this program?
Okay, that's a good question. So some of that, and this is probably quite a common thing that you might see across many aged care organisations these days, but we would have personalised music for people. But what we do a little bit different to other organisations is many organisations will set up iPods for a particular resident or client, and they would often be left on their own. So, you know, they'd put their iPod on, they'd clip it on their shirt, put some headphones on, and that person might go sit in the kitchen or out in the garden on their own. But what we've done a little bit differently is we actually have the carers have a music player, and it's an iPod, so it's got a music subscription on it, and that has the playlist for the people that they support. But it means that they have to do it with them. So what you might see when you're walking around is actually residents and carers listening to music together and hopefully singing. You might see them, you know, in the bathroom. That's quite common, that we find that it's quite comforting to some of our residents, those in particular that get confused when they're in the shower or can feel threatened, having music that reminds them of a familiar and warm environment. So carers will sing in the bathroom. They might have instruments. So we have shelves with different instruments. So you might see people sat together doing some drumming. We've created some online content. So they could be sat in the dining room, joining in with a virtual drum circle or a virtual sing-along. What else? They could be...
Sounds absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah.
I just think that we need to be able to use music more effectively in times of often potential distress, like a shower, and to be able to be dancing in a shower to Elvis Presley and having a sing-along rather than feeling quite vulnerable is just such a wonderful thing to hear.
Yeah.
Tell me, the first thing that I think of is carers saying, I'm not musical and I'm not singing.
Yes. At least one in every group that I run. And, you know, on any given week, I might run somewhere between 4 and 8 of these sessions. So to have one person in every single group is a pretty high portion. But what I find is once they do it, so you have this moment where we're all singing and we might be singing a simple song like You Are My Sunshine. And all of a sudden, one person will start singing, and then someone else does, and then someone else does. And by the end, everyone's singing, and most of the time they're smiling. And I think I might have even got this reference from you, Alex, but I often say in the training, you know, what's more uncomfortable, having a person who feels like a stranger ask you to take your clothes off and get in the shower, or opening your mouth and singing? And I think for the most part, our carers really acknowledge that the nature of that role is that they are put into situations where clients will feel uncomfortable. And as challenging as singing can be, and I truly acknowledge that it can be tough for a lot of people, it's not as hard as what the residents are going through most of the time. And I'm really lucky. We've got some fantastic carers that just totally get on board and really just understand the value of it. So I'm pretty lucky in that regard.
Just sounds amazing. Now tell me, this program's been happening for a little while now. Has it been running for 12 months yet? Yeah,
we piloted, so we probably finished our pilots just under 12 months ago, and then have moved into that phase of starting to roll it out to all of the sites. That was, of course, with everything in the world a little delayed by COVID-19, but we're starting to get back into things now. And so probably really around 6 months of true full steam ahead.
Can we talk about culture, music and culture within a facility? When do you think you're going to get to the point where you think that embedding music into care is actually part of the culture of Brightwater and not just a pilot and then a program? And when do you think you could truly just leave it and it's going to just be its own program?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Yeah. This is probably something that I think about almost on a daily basis, and the answer is probably that I don't know. I would like to think that within a couple of years that could happen, but I think it's bigger than just a culture change associated with music. I think people really genuinely need to value getting to know someone and allowing them whatever opportunity and experience it takes for that person to live their life, whether that's music, or, you know, whether they're really passionate about bowls and it's that, or, you know, tending to the veggie patch, whatever it might be. And I think culture change just takes time. So honestly, I don't know if we'll ever get there, but I like to think that we will.
You're certainly well on the way.
Yeah, and we're certainly, I guess, designing it and implementing it with that hope in mind. But it's a really difficult thing to measure. When we talk to staff to kind of measure, has this been embedded, we look at it from 3 angles. So we look at their confidence. Do they feel confident to do this? Their capacity. So have they got the knowledge? Have they taken on board some of the key information around where music might be useful, or perhaps where it might be not so useful, and perhaps, you know, actually almost harmful or counterintuitive to what they're trying to achieve? And then we also, obviously, as an organisation, look at compliance. So are people actually complying with our policies and procedures around giving people musical choice? Or do they just walk onto their shift and turn the radio on and that's that for the day, which is not what we want people to be doing.
No, I mean, we could have a whole other conversation around healthy use of music in aged care, which is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. But
yep.
I think this program really nurtures opportunities in healthy use of music, which is fantastic. So the next thing that I often get asked is, okay, we're a not-for-profit organisation and we have no funding. How on earth would we be able to have a music and wellbeing coordinator? And obviously you've explained that Brightwater was able to fundraise, which is amazing. But look, lots of organisations can't afford to have this kind of program. So what are your thoughts around sustainability and or an organisation wanting to replicate something like this?
I think the sustainability links in with that culture change, if I'm being honest. So there does need to be a commitment. If it's going to be sustainable, I think the commitment needs to come from the top of an organisation. They need to really get behind it and ensure that staff know the reasons behind using music. And, you know, that's what we've talked about in that it's a part of who somebody is. But I also think for it to be sustainable, people on the front line need to experience it. So I could go and deliver dozens of training sessions and tell people how wonderful music is, but if they don't feel it and experience it, they're probably not really going to take it on board. So I think in terms of making it sustainable, we do need to acknowledge that it's not a quick change. But it does take a really strong commitment from everyone across the organisation to use music and to share it. So, you know, we need to be talking about it as well.
Okay, well, I might take a step back because you've made me think then. Obviously, the leaders at Brightwater had a really strong vision about music, but often as a music therapist, I spend so much time advocating for the use of music to leadership teams. And the first thing is they come with preconceptions about what music is, and it takes a really long, hard road of advocacy and education and showing research around really challenging those misconceptions about music. If you were sitting in front of a leadership team tomorrow, where would someone start in trying to convince them that this can be such a positive change for an organisation and the care that they're giving for their residents?
Well, first of all, I just want to resonate what you said, that the long road is never ending. So as I said, I was talking to Brightwater for a year before I started working there, not as an employee, to convince them that music was worthwhile. And I still do that every day. I've been there for over 2 years, and that's a conversation that I'm always having. So to think, if I was sitting down in front of a leadership team tomorrow, how would I convince them? I think I'd tell them the stories. Of course, there's this huge body of research, but it can get quite muddy to wade through. So I think it's important to be able to take that research and to give a really clear and concise summary, but then tell a story. So anytime I do a presentation to our leadership team, I will, with a resident's or a client's approval, tell their story of how music has helped them. And, you know, I might not be able to achieve that sitting down with a leadership tomorrow, but once you've got them to agree to maybe a trial, my top tip is to get them in the room. So, you know, I invite our senior decision makers to group music therapy to participate alongside clients. Last year we had a client where a group of people that we support in the community actually came to our residential care home, one of them I should say, and did a concert, and we had our CEO there and 4 other people from our executive team. And for weeks afterwards, they were telling me what a great experience it was, because they could see how music brought everyone in that room together. So it's hard to initially get them over the line, but then once you get them over the line, you have to keep reminding people why it is such a wonderful thing and why it is worthwhile. Maybe not what potential music and wellbeing coordinators want to hear, but it's not easy.
No. Okay, so I'm listening to this conversation and thinking, wow, this is something I'd really like to do. Who could do this work? I probably should disclose I'm a registered music therapist, and Hayley is an almost very newly almost qualified registered music therapist also. Do you think this work is a work of music therapists, or can other people do this work?
Look, as you say, I'm a newly registered music therapist, so I've actually been studying my master's for most of the time I've been at Brightwater. And honestly, the information I've learnt through that course and in my training to become a registered music therapist has been invaluable. The program would not look like what it looks like today if I didn't have that training. So I guess it's quite difficult for me to imagine someone who didn't have that knowledge being able to set it up. Do I think it's impossible? No. If someone has real passion and enthusiasm and is open to really reading research and informing themselves, I have no doubt that they could establish something that would be really beneficial. But for me personally, I think that this program has forever been improved by the knowledge that I've gained through my training to become a registered music therapist. And if I'm being honest and sort of saying if I was talking to future decision makers, I would say that that's something that they should really consider having as part of the knowledge base and the skill set that they would want a coordinator to have. Yeah.
Can I just finish on a big picture question? I'm a bit of a big picture kind of person. Tell me, what do you think aged care is going to look like in 10 years' time? Or what do you hope for aged care in 10 years' time?
Yeah. Honestly, I hope it looks quite different. As I said at the beginning, I initially came to this whole support and care industry through disability. And although our NDIS model is not perfect, I actually would love to see aged care looking more like that, specifically residential aged care. So NDIS is funded for enabling services. So I remember being told by a team leader, if you have to stand with a person for half an hour to allow them to brush their own teeth, that is much, so that is preferred to you kind of doing that for them. And the NDIS funds you to do that, to allow someone to have their independence and do things for themselves. But aged care doesn't, so I would love to see that change. I'd love to see care workers not be care workers. I'd love to see them be support workers and supporting someone to pursue their passions, to live their life. Some of the things I enjoyed most working in disability were being kind of rostered or scheduled to go out in the garden and do photography with someone that enjoyed photography, or go and tend to the herb garden, or go and do the cooking with someone that loved cooking. So I'd love to see carers become support workers and do more of that, and just generally having a really vibrant and age diverse workforce, and therapy services that actually are there to build capacity and maintain capacity. But that's probably a wish list. Maybe that's more of what I hope, rather than where I think we will actually be. But I do think we're really making steps in the right direction. So maybe it's not such a pipe dream. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm right behind you. Let's hope that's what it looks like in 10 years. That would just be phenomenal. Amazing.
Yeah.
Hayley, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. It's been lovely to have a chat with you. What I'm going to do for those who've watched our little clip is pop Hayley's details in the bottom in the link. So if you have any further questions about music and wellbeing coordination or the program at Brightwater, I'm sure you'll be able to contact Hayley, and I'll put my details down too. Thank you so much, Hayley.
Thank you, Alex. It's been a pleasure as always.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. See you later.